Hey everyone, it's Jessica Michaels here with another layout for the Shimmerz Paints design team. You can use my name Jessica in the notes section of your order to earn a free gift. So I'm starting this one off with a colored sheet of textured basil cardstock in a nice blue shade. I really loved this particular piece of paper because it matches the blue in my photos. So that's kind of what's driving my layout today. I just wanted to create an anchor point to hold all of these mixed media sprays. So I just smoothed on some of that white gesso by Liquitex to prep my paper to hold up to this mixed media. It helps my paper to not warp, and I just put it on that section because that's where I want my color to go. So I'm using my Spritz here. I have a few different colors here today. This one here is called Whites of Their Eyes, and that one's in a Color Splash product. And then the blues that I used is also a Color Splash in Rockin and then a Spritz in Powder Puff. And then I'm going to also add some black here in a minute, which is a Vibes in Before Dawn. I wanted to use a cut file on this layout, so I grabbed a pear tree cut file and cut it out on my Cricut. I tried it two different ways. I tried applying gesso to the bottom section of my paper there first and cutting it, but it didn't like to cut that on my Cricut machine, so I'm just applying my gesso to my letters after I did my cutting on my machine. It seemed to work a lot better that way, so I am just adding some mixed media to just my letters themselves because I want to pop them up and give them some color. So I've just cut my cut file out of some textured white cardstock, and then I applied some clear gesso, not the white gesso, but I did use clear gesso on these by Finabair. And then all I'm doing here is I'm just taking a sponge, and this is that powder puff color, and I am just dabbing it on with my sponge, and I'm just kind of cleaning up my glass mat as I go between the layers. I'm going to add a little bit of this dark color. This is that Before Dawn. I wanted to kind of create an ombre effect, but I wanted it light. I didn't want anything super intense, and I wanted to keep it kind of light, but still give it a little bit of color in an ombre effect, just to give it a little pop. And then I am going to take the powder puff again. This is the Spritz. I'm just kind of splattering on some of that paint color just by removing that nozzle and just flicking it on the letters to create those splatters. I'm also going to pull out some white acrylic craft paint. This is nothing special. You can get it at your local Walmart or Michael's or anything like that. It's just some cheap acrylic white paint. I'm just watering it down and flicking it on with my paintbrush again like that, just to create some splatters. I'm doing the same thing on my background too. You can see I'll keep grabbing this and adding little layers here and there. That white is just going to create a marbling effect since it's still wet and just kind of break up that color a little bit. You can see the different colors there. They've kind of blended together, but they're still kind of separated at the same time. So I left them just kind of be wherever they wanted to be. And I just used that Before Dawn to add some darker splatters. They're actually going to blend in a little bit because it is still wet, and that's okay. I wanted some of them to stand out, the ones that popped up on the paper itself and not on the gessoed portion. And then the ones that is on the gesso and the mixed media is just going to kind of blend in a little bit. But I wanted a little bit darker color, so it works out perfectly. I have my photos here that I am just going to mat with a few papers. I'm actually pulling out some Cocoa Vanilla Studio today. I've got some older collections here that really were speaking to me with these blue shades, and the blues in my photo with my little guy's shirt and the sky behind him. So I just thought this collection would be perfect. I'm actually using two collections, the Legendary collection and the No Limits collection by Cocoa Vanilla Studio. So I'm just pulling out a bunch of scraps that I have and just matting these photos, giving them some life on the edges with some texture just by distressing with my fingernails. And then I've got my cut file here. I ended up cutting it again in black textured cardstock because I wanted to give that my word some extra dimension and pop it up with some black versus just white. So I'm actually just going to cut that my word off of my cut file. I'm not going to use the boy outline. I'm just going to use the my from this one. I could have did some work in my Design Space software to not have it cut that out and kind of hide that boy word using the slice tool. but I ended up just cutting the whole thing because honestly, I just wanted to get it cut out, and I figured it would just be quicker for me to just cut it off myself. So no worries. It is here. I'm going to go ahead and glue this portion down with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. It's going to dry clear, so if I make a mess with that, I don't have to worry about that. And I have all my little bits here that I'm pulling in. I'm going to add some of these little stars from these die cut packs of ephemera in these collections. And then my cut file is going to go about right there. I'm going to go ahead and glue down these stars and get them settled in place. I need to glue my photos down at the same time, and you're going to see me use 2 different types of glue or adhesive on that, because when you glue things down to your mixed media, you want to make sure you're adding a little bit extra, because sometimes things don't like to stick down to mixed media. So I'm going to add some tape from my tape runner and then go back through with some Nuvo Deluxe adhesive as well, which is that liquid adhesive, just to give it kind of a double adhesive. What I'm doing here is I'm just adding a little bit more interest to my letters on my cut file. I'm going to do this with the black and the white letters. So I'm going to use white gel pen on the black letters here, and then a black pen on my white letters. So just doing the opposite there. I'm just adding some little doodly lines and little dots along the border of my letters just to make them pop a little bit more. And then I've also added these little border strips. They're little scallop borders. They're also embossed. It's from my favorite dies that are borders. I actually have quite a few favorite dies that are border dies, but these ones are from the Spellbinders border die set. I will link them in the description for you in case you want to grab them. I got mine from A Cherry on Top, and I will link below all of the products I've used today from Shimmerz as well, in case you need the names for those to grab those from the shop as well. So as usual, I'll link everything down below in the description in case you're interested. This cut file is from Pear Tree. It says My Boy, which is just perfect on this layout. And I wanted to keep, lots of blues and then just black and white for a little pop. So that's what I'm doing with this. And then again, adding these doodles, I'm finishing off these big letters here, as you can see, and then I'm going to use some foam tape to pop all of these letters up at the bottom. And I'm also going to stagger them a little bit, so I'm not going to put them down perfectly aligned with my my outline on the cut file. I'm going to stagger them a little bit to just give them a little bit of a pop. And then here, I'm just going to go back through after I get all these letters on and put the middles of the B and the O in there as well. I am using those pieces. Sometimes I don't use them, or sometimes I fill the centers of my letters with photos or something like that, but these weren't super big to put photos inside them, and these are the only 2 photos that I had for this particular layout, so I just let the insides kind of empty. And actually, I shouldn't say empty, because I do end up grabbing something and filling in a little bit of that O, but for this main part here, I'm going to leave most of it open so that mixed media shines through there. So I'm just grabbing some embellishments at this point. I wanted to add these cute little tickets. I actually had just one of those in the ephemera pack that I ripped in half to make 2 little embellishments that I can just tuck in the top of these photos. And then the little binder clip there that you see is actually a die that I think I got. It's either from Hey Little Magpie or Amazon. I can't remember where those ones came from, but I'll look and see if I can find them for you. And if I can find them, I'll grab the link and put that in the description for you too, as they are super cute. They come in a set of 3 different sizes. You can see the other 2 laying on the right side of my desk there. They come in 3 different sizes, so they are really, really versatile and really cool for using on different projects. I've got some thread here and some flare by Scrap and Happy Studio that I'm pulling into this layout. Originally, I thought I was going to use these farm ones, but they didn't really go with the vibe of this layout so much, so I'm going to just use that sun, and then I will pull in another one here from this other pack. It's kind of like more of an adventure one, maybe for camping or hiking or something. So I'm going to use a couple of them, but I'm not going to use that cow one there that was just there. That one. I'm going to use that one that says something about wild and free, I think. It's so small on my screen when I edit these videos. It's hard for me to see it and remember what I used and remember what things say. So I'm sure it's a lot bigger on you guys' screen, and you're like, it says this. But I'll look later and I'll remember what it says when I look at the photos. But I like to put some thread in behind my flare. So what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing some medium-sized glue dots and putting one on the back of the flare, then adding some thread in behind there, and then putting another glue dot to adhere down to my page. So it's something super easy and simple that you can do. It's messy. I just kind of twiddle it around and drop it into my hand and then stick the flare to it, and then just adhere down to my layout. But it just adds a little pop of texture and interest, and I just love the way that it looks on layouts. And then I'm just going to go through and add a bunch of these little stars, these little chipboards, little puffy stickers there you see on the left there from that No Limits collection. And then I'm going to grab some sequins from my stash as well. I think they're actually from Not Just for Boys Kit Club. And I'll add some of those, and then some of this wax twine that I just got. And yeah, lots of little bits and things. That's kind of like one of the things that I like to do on layouts is I like to just add a lot of little bits and pieces and bits and bobs, I guess it's called. And I was originally going to tie that in a bow, and I hated it. I didn't like how it looked, so I immediately took it back out and cut the top of it off because I didn't want it super long on this layout. So figured I already had enough texture with the thread. I didn't need to add any more of that. So this one I had to pop up twice with some of those 3D foam squares because the dimension of my foam tape was a little bit thicker. So I just used a couple extra on there. This is just those epoxy stickers from that No Limits collection, just using a few of those to dump on here. And then I'm going to grab those sequins and add a bunch of those. My baby girl is here and crafting with me as usual, and she loves when I get sequins out, and she made a complete mess of them and started dumping them all over my desk and in the pot and just kind of playing in it. So I ended up cutting that part of the video out because she just made a complete mess. And it was funny and cute, and honestly it wasn't all over the place. It wasn't on the floor, it wasn't on my table, it actually stayed right on this mat. But yeah, she was just kind of scattering them all over the place, so I ended up cutting that part out here in a bit. So you'll see where I fast forward that. I'm just going to glue down that tail off of that thread and then add a couple more of those little stickers before I grab those sequins I mentioned. I also add some of these wordy bits. I really love little bits that have word phrases on it like this, and it's something that I'm always using on my layouts. So I love to just kind of stagger them and scatter them on my layouts in different places. So I've added a couple at the top of my one photo, and then I've added a few more down here. I just think it helps kind of balance out the layout and give it a nice flow. So I've got these little stars here from the ephemera packs in these collections, and I figure it's almost done at this point. I just got to add these sequins that I mentioned earlier. So this is just from my Not Just for Boys Kit Club, and then I think the flat ones there that I have are actually from the same kit club as well. So you can see all those are on there at this point. I ended up grabbing my white paint again to add some more splatters just to break up that black in the my word, and then just add a little bit more at the top and bottom. Just going to staple that down, and then this one's done. So I love how this one turned out. I think it's super cool. It's great. It's really grungy for my boy here. Look at his smile. So I hope I've inspired you guys to create, and I will link down below the products in case you want to grab anything from the shop. So thank you guys so much for being here, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.